Right, some thoughts on revision. Pretty dramatic title there, The Secret to Successful Revision. Well, deep breath. Here's the secret to successful revision. Best tools for revision are a pen and a blank piece of paper, and I'll explain why I would argue that over the next few minutes. I would enter a caveat here. We're all different, and the advice here is fine for many people, but maybe not everyone. If you have your own tried and true system of revision, that's fine, stick to it. For a bit of variety, you might want to try some of the things suggested here, but that's up to you. Whatever approach you take, revision is a hard process for most people. Whatever you do decide to do, don't confuse feeling comfortable with being effective. Effective study's hard work, no kidding about that. It needs your active engagement. I'll talk about active versus passive in a moment. Okay, active learning. Active learning is where the responsibility is focused on learners. It's very much a key component for higher education. It requires you to think about things. It requires you to engage high-level cognitive processes to understand what you're doing. And there's loads of evidence from cognitive psychology that it's better than what's called passive learning. An old organic chemistry lecturer of mine used to say that education is an indefinable thing that passes from the notes of the lecturer to the notes of the student without going through the minds of either. That's not what we're trying to achieve. There's not much you can do about the mind of the lecturer, but you can address the other side of the problem by using active learning strategies such as writing your own notes and the pen and paper approach to revision I'm going to be talking about here. The little diagram there is going from passive learning to active learning. So you start listening to a lecture, maybe interesting, maybe not that interesting. It's a pretty passive process. If you take a notes, it's a little bit more active, and later on post the lecture, if you're writing your own notes from the notes you took in the lecture, that's a very active process, and it's something I would always recommend. Higher education is different from other forms of learning such as schools and colleges. We place the emphasis very much on understanding. Don't get me wrong, you will need to learn a lot, both in terms of knowledge and practical skills, but to develop high level understanding is something which we regard as being much more important. Knowledge, especially in science, is systematic, not just a collection of facts. So here's some thoughts on how you might approach revision. Okay, just re-emphasising that. The pen and the blank piece of paper approach to revision. It's one approach. Say you may want to develop your own, but this does work with a lot of people. You open your notes to a discrete topic and you read it. Okay, so you have a little think about this, and then read it again, but more carefully. Having done that, with the notes open, you write a summary. Okay, straightforward enough. So we've got the second phase. Compare the notes to your summary to the original notes. Make any corrections you want to make. Then take a break. It's important to factor in some breaks, have a walk around, have something to eat, talk to your friends or whatever. Then come back and repeat the exercise. Okay, so we've now done it twice in this particular model. Then we do it again, but this time we don't look at your notes. You hide them, you stick them on a different table, and you just write out everything you know about the topic. Don't worry about not knowing everything. Then repeat the exercise and taking plenty of breaks. So there is good evidence that this is a good way to help you learn. Try it and see if it works for you. There are other approaches available, and some of them listed here. Mind mapping is something I'm going to talk about in a minute. I've talked quite a lot in my lectures about helicopter views of topics. The idea there is to develop a big picture view of a topic. By that I mean you should be able to explain it to a reasonably intelligent friend who doesn't have a scientific background, or your gran, or a very bright cat. The key is to use plain language. Okay, so that develops your high level understanding, your helicopter view. From this starting point you have the framework to build your own detailed understanding of the topic. Small groups to discuss revision topics can be very useful. You might find another member of the group has the answer to a knotty problem you've not been able to figure out. Equally, you may well find that yourself helping other members of the group in the same way. But let's bear in mind you do need to build your own knowledge and understanding. Groups can only supplement that. Okay, explaining the cat may not be the best plan. Right, mind maps. Mind maps are something which has been used quite a lot in recent years. They're a visual way of describing a topic. In the example I've done here, I've started to build a mind map describing the important classes of biological molecules. So I started with a high-level topic, biomolecules, at the centre of the map, and then drew branches to the main categories, proteins, lipids, etc. There's lots of, I've done this using software, but as I'll discuss in a moment, it's often better to do these things by handwriting. There's lots of links to examples of these available online. Okay, so here's a more elaborate version of the same mind map. We'll zoom in and have a look at some of the branches. Protein, for example, branches off into a number of sub-branches covering amino acids, peptide bonds, etc. Okay, so that's one approach. If you're interested, you should develop your own branches for the other biomolecules in this mind map which we saw on the previous page. Bear in mind though, they are just the start. They're just that, they're a map. You can use them to help structure your understanding of a topic area, and they provide then a context for much more detailed understanding of concepts such as the alpha carbon atom and chirality. Many of us use mind mapping software, particularly those of us who've got a dyslexia diagnosis, and it's very useful, but you need to be a little bit careful about it. Using a computer's hard work. Even the youngest among us learn to read and write using a pen and paper, and it's still the most natural way for most of us to work. Mind mapping software, or any other software for that matter, requires you to understand the software as well as creating the document producing, in this case a mind map. This extra cognitive load can impact on your learning. Okay, if you have issues with dyslexia and have been given the mind mapping software we supply, you may think carefully about how to use it. Discuss any issues you have with the support staff, and try both the computer and the handwritten mind maps. Okay, one last word about mind maps. Don't worry about creating brilliantly neat mind maps. Any old scribble will do. The process of doing the mind map, during which you marshal your knowledge about the topic, is more important than the finished product looking nice. Writing legibly. The revision notes I've been talking about here don't need to be real legible. They're just for you. And it can in fact be argued that you shouldn't waste time making lovely neat notes. The problem being that you might be spending more time on neatness than on learning. Of course, your particular learning style may benefit from taking a neat, methodical approach, which is fine. Just bear in mind these comments. Okay, the flip side of neat writing issue is that exam scripts do need to be legible by the markers. We're pretty experienced and we can generally make out most people's handwriting, but try to be as neat as possible, please. The other thing you should bear in mind is that exams are 2 hours long. Okay, so you have 10 minutes to start for reading. This may mean that you're going to be writing for up to 100 minutes. That's a long time. Even a 2-hour lecture, you wouldn't normally write that much. Writing for so long can be a bit taxing. It can cause pain in your wrist and whatnot. So this is another good reason why the handwriting revision notes is a good plan. It gets you used to writing. I'm aware that some students use laptops supplied by us for exams. You should discuss how they will work with the support staff and make sure that you practice using a computer in this setting. Can't emphasise that too strongly. Just don't turn up on the day expecting to figure out how to do it. Okay, resources. Old exam papers are usually available. Look at the module handbook or for the links on Blackboard. You can also ask at the library, which may have older papers. You should bear in mind, however, that older papers may not cover the same material you study. For example, the biochem module has only run in its present form for a couple of years. Many modules will have online tutorials and staff will generally run revision sessions, so make sure you turn up for them. Eating. I like to eat bananas because they've got no bones, as the old song has it. Okay, you may want to think carefully about diet, especially breakfast. There's good evidence that having a low glycemic index breakfast improves academic performance. So what is this GI, or glycemic index? Basically, it's a measure of how quickly sugar from food is released into the bloodstream. High GI foods, such as chocolate bars, rapidly increase your blood glucose concentration. However, as you can see from the graph, this effect soon falls off, with blood glucose levels often falling to a point that was lower than the starting point. With a low GI food, such as bananas, and many others, there's lots of resources online where you can look these things up, sugars are released much more slowly and the large changes in blood glucose concentration are avoided. This is a good thing, and there's plenty of evidence that it contributes to success in things like exam. As I've said, it's up to you to think about this. One thing I would say is that you shouldn't change your diet radically just before the exam. Big changes can lead to, shall we say, digestive distress. Okay, I've mentioned there's lots of evidence to back up what I've said about GI and cognitive performance. Here's some from a final year project done a few years ago by one of our food nutrition students. She fed volunteers different breakfasts, or none in some cases, and then did a bunch of psychological tests. I think you agree here that the results support what I was saying about this. As ever, I would say don't just listen to me. Stella Cottrell's Study Skills Handbook is always recommended. There are many online resources available. The one here is nicely concise. Many of them aren't, so be a bit careful of that. Again, I would caution you, these are only tools to help prepare for revision. Spend some time thinking about this. Get yourself organised, but don't spend too much time planning for revision. You do need to do the actual revision. Okay, there we are. Thanks very much, and I wish you all success in the exams, and if you all work hard, I'm sure you will be successful.